Welcome back to Bourbon Barrel Talk. I'm your host, Scott Minton. Today we are at West Fork Whsky in Westfield, Indiana. That's a lot of West. And then we have the two of the, I guess there's four owners, right?
Three co-founders.
Three co-founders. And we got Julian and Blake Jones here with us. So, gentlemen, how are you doing?
Doing great.
Good.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Excited to be here.
Glad you could be on.
I'll say you guys have a marvelous facility, and I, doing some research back in it. I guess this is about 2 years old now.
Yeah, just
This
over 2
location?
years old.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we're still growing into it.
Still growing into it. That's the exciting part, right? Like as you grow into your facility, your space, you guys got. Well, I'll let you tell a little bit more about that. But you have a fairly large campus that you all acquired out here in Westfield, and let's just talk a little bit about that. Let's start off with that.
Yeah. So ultimately, when you think about where our company was a long time ago, we started our company at 8557 Zionsville Road. So if anybody knows, if you're from Central Indiana, where Squealer's Barbecue on 86th Street, just inside the Loop there's an industrial park. We're talking about maybe 2,000 square foot warehouse to start. Then we went downtown and opened a small little distillery and tasting room, and then we got a warehouse not far from there. And then it was like, man, we gotta figure out a place where we can really have a brand home and something that we can scale. And then we started planning this in 2019. Partially because we started, hitting our production capacity and processing capacity, but also we needed somewhere where, people could come kick the tires, right? They could come experience our brand, feel our brand, and get to know our personalities and our bourbons and our whiskeys and what we have to offer. And so, we opened this in 2022 and got a lot of the different facets of this business between the restaurant and the cocktail bar that we're kind of hanging out in today, tasting bar, event center, warehouse, processing, the whole deal.
So let's dive a little bit more into that. So if folks want to have an event here, that's something they can do. Like, are you doing like small weddings? What are you doing with the event center space?
We're business people, right? You can rent out the whole space if you want to, the whole damn building. But we did 40 weddings last year. In 2024, we do corporate events, not-for-profit fundraisers, lunch and learns for people. We've done something with Boston Scientific. So every space is rentable, but we've got an event center, right? People like to have weddings or corporate events at breweries, wineries, and distilleries. We're building a big box, so why not build a little bit bigger box and have a space where folks can come? And we've done Whsky Fest for people before, right? We've had a lot of other brands in that space. And eventually, and I don't know if I really answered the question earlier, but we've got 25 and a half acres here, and we really want to develop a community around us with other bells and whistles and some outdoor amenities.
We also do some really cool stuff with, even the weddings that we do here, right? We, for example, last weekend just did a custom batch and bottling for a couple that got married here. So we also plug the distillery side into that space as much as we can. So we offer that as well.
So let's go back a little bit more about the history and heritage. We did one episode with you guys back in 2021. Obviously, when we were here that time, we were at the East Street location right there near the West Fork Whsky, near the West Fork portion of the White River. Let's talk a little bit about that, like the naming, how it came to, and then also dive into a little bit more about what type of products and how things have translated from having the old Colonel and the Hugh Hamer and Rider's Block to now what your all standard line looks like.
Julian, feel free to interrupt me as I spew here. But our company, when we founded it, the three of us, it was really just about making bourbon and whiskey that stayed true to Indiana. And when most folks think about Indiana, they think about corn, maybe racing, maybe basketball, but we wanted to capitalize on that identity and really create a unique product. And Julian, when we were offline before we got started, walk you through a couple things that made us unique. It's not just corn forward, but it's also how we mash and how we ferment is going to be really, really unique. But the product evolution for us, we are distilling wise, I guess we're technically 10 years in the game now. And I feel like we're just now, from a product standpoint, really getting to a place that we're starting to get really proud of. Not saying we didn't make good products and solid products before, but we are our harshest critics. And so Absolutely. We want our products to continue to get better and better. But we finally gotten our minimum age, 4+ years. A lot of the stuff on the West Fork side is between 4 and 6 years. Hamer stuff is, we're about to release a 10 year. And we've got some plans for maybe 11, 12 year release next year. And so, as a young distillery, as the product has evolved, what we thought worked and what worked maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago is just not necessarily what people want from us or what we should be doing today. And so we've tried a lot. To your point, we've had more playful names, and now we have more, more straightforward names.
Gotcha. So let's line up those brands, right? Like originally when I came in, we talked, and I think Writer's Block was one. That is now your all's kind of rye whiskey.
Just rye whiskey, yep.
And then you had the Colonel, which I think, if I remember, was that not the weeded mash bill?
That's weeded mash bill. Yep, we still make the product.
So and that's the thing I wanted people to understand is like, hey, if you listen to the old episode and you came to West Fork 2 years ago, they still have the same products. They've just relabeled or rebranded it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we realized when we had those products is some people really resonated with the playfulness of the brand at that point. But if we were going to be taken more seriously as a whiskey producer over time, and as we expanded into other states, we needed to communicate more clearly with our customer with what the product was. And so, for instance, the Colonel just became our wheated bourbon, and our Writer's Block rye whiskey, right? And certainly we missed some of the fun personality of what those things brought to the table for us. But it was the right thing to do for our brand over time when we can't be there to tell the story. Yeah. When people are just looking at the bottles on the shelf.
That's very fair. I always tell people one of my favorite things about good whiskey and good whiskey brands is transparency, right? Like it's great to have fun names or unique things, but sometimes if you don't know what you're buying, it makes things difficult. And especially when you're looking at a shelf full of whiskey, right? Like you want to be able to know what you're getting. So transparency to me is very important when you're looking at those type of things.
And to your point, I mean, the first thing we're sipping on right now, our wheated bottle and bond. You look at the back label on it. We tell you the mash bill. We tell you, where it came from. If we're gonna use something to blend in it, who the distillery is. I mean, anything pretty much under our West Fork brand is 100% distilled, mashed, fermented, aged, everything by us. But it walks you through exactly what that product is.
So this specific one is a wheated mash bill. It's 73% corn, 17% wheat, 10% rye, and it is 4+ years old. So
in a Speyside barrel. 53 gallon.
And
there we go.
Number 4 char with these first initial ones.
Yeah, it's a 4 char.
All right, so I'm going to ask a geek out question.
Yeah.
All right, yeast.
Yeah.
What do you have multiple strands? You have one that you kind of always go to?
I have used a number of yeast. I've used some from Firm Solutions down in Kentucky, but the yeast that I have liked the best is a Pinnacle yeast, Pinnacle MG Plus, which is a very fancy bourbon yeast made, I think, in France. But it is the most, I was explaining earlier about the fermentations and how we did kind of a non-conventional, non-temperature controlled, resident microflora fermentation, and it actually is one of the toughest yeast that you can buy.
Really?
So
Okay.
it's super alcohol tolerant, and it'll just put the booze out, even if it's hot, if it's cold, if it's too much sugar, if it's not enough sugar. It does the work.
Wasn't that originally a brandy yeast strand?
Not that one
Pinnacle? No?
particular.
Okay.
Pinnacle has probably hundreds of yeast strands now.
Yeah, I just remember the name Pinnacle.
That particular, the MG Plus is a bourbon yeast.
Gotcha. Okay. So all right, I'm going off on this first of all. So the nose on this thing is like it's definitely got some corn there, right?
Yeah.
Very sweet and grainy.
And that's what we're really looking to do, not just on the Hamer side, but definitely on the West Fork side. We want really corn-forward, sweet, floral, or citrus bourbons in general, right?
And soft and approachable.
Yep.
So that was the next thing I was going to say. Like the citrus, like I was shocked at like how much spice, like baking spice and citrus was coming off of a weeder. You don't typically get a whole lot of that on a typical weeded bourbon.
And that's because there's even though it is a weeder, right, there's still a bit of rye in there too.
Yep.
So that's the wheat and the rye kind of dancing together there.
Oh, so the third grain is rye. Oh, it is 10% rye.
Yeah, no
Yep.
barley in that
No
mash
No
bill.
barley. Oh,
And the way we ferment, you get a sweet spice. You get a sweet sour, and the way we ferment, you get some sweet components. You get some sour components because of that. I think hybrid sour mash is what we're deeming, and it's not a sweet mash, and it's not a true sour mash. And so you can really see. I think that particular batch that you're sipping on is about 4.5, 5 years old. Mm-hmm. And that citrus and floral is pretty cool, and it's pretty unique.
yeah.
Yeah, and the mouth coating nature of it too, right? It's very saccharine and coats your palate the whole time. Even though you're getting sweet and spice there, you kind of get this kind of sweet washing over the whole palate.
Yeah, and I don't know if I read it wrong. I don't know if I said barley or if I said rye the first time when I read it, but I I must have skimmed over it and didn't realize
Didn't
it.
know-
Well,
see it,
it's,
yeah.
it's not usual to have a weeded bourbon that just has corn, wheat, and rye.
Exactly.
Right?
That was my point. I think
it's a very unique weeded mash bill for sure.
it was a mind meld, right? Like you sit there and you look at it, and
You're just used to seeing malted barley as that
Exactly.
other grain in there, right?
Yeah, and this is very viscous,
Yep.
mouthfeel,
Yep.
for it not to have any barley in it.
Yep.
Because I've always known barley to kind of assist with that viscous.
And it does. Corn does it just slightly differently. And that mix can kind of change it from that malted barley maltiness to that corn saccharin sweetness.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of nice corn, get a little bit of kind of a nice spiced oak aftertaste, that kind of lingers in the palate.
Yep.
it's that floral note that like just keeps coming through. That like really, I'm just like
we really
what
like
is
this
that?
this one. And when you think about wheaters in general, and this is what I always tell people, you think about like a Weller wheat, right, which is really
Right.
sweet and soft, and you think about like a Maker's wheat, which is not a knock on Makers. It's more of like a grainy, kind of dirty field wheat. I know those aren't technical terms, right? But a little bit more grainy, right, and robust.
Like Haymarket, like
Yep.
in the back of the barn.
Yeah, like
Dusty.
dusty almost. Yeah, right. And this one, it tends to be more sweet, but it has some nice depth still and some nice character to it.
Yeah, that rye definitely does something different to it for sure that I was not expecting. Because, like I said, when I read it, I obviously read rye because nobody corrected me. But the whole time in my head, I was thinking barley, right?
Yeah.
Do you not use barley because of the difference in your fermentation process?
Honestly, it just came out of us testing and trying different stuff. Also, barley was the most expensive of those grains, especially back then, and the prices fluctuated wildly. I'm sure you guys know as well as anybody. Even though malted barley was historically used for its enzymatic activity, even the people who use lots of malted barley in their mash bills are still using exogenous enzymes. So you don't really need to use malted barley anymore. It's more used for flavor, mouthfeel, all these other things, right? So we just tried some recipes. We liked it without malted barley, so we ran with it.
And again, we have to create uniqueness about our products if we're going to survive and thrive, right? And we can't me too.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
can't just make the same mash bills as Kentucky and be like, we're going to do it better than you who have done it for hundreds of years, and we've done it for 10.
I guess one of my side questions to that to kind of follow up is going to be, how much mad scientist do you really get into whenever you start going down these different routes?
I feel like it was more in the beginning, for sure. There was a lot of hardcore scientific discussion and why things taste different ways and all this stuff. But the more we've evolved, the more we've been able to just kind of step back and look at what's worked and what hasn't. Regardless of what our theory was or what we thought was going to stick, now we're actually getting 4 or 5 year old 53-gallon barrels of different mash bills with different production techniques, with different barrels, with different entry proofs. So it's more now of step back and look what we did and see what we like. So it's kind of a data crunching now rather than whiteboarding, if you will.
No, absolutely. Because, I mean, a lot of times in that early, starting out, you get that spectrum where you can kind of, it's like scattershot out of a shotgun. You try a lot of different things, and then now you're as you said, you're bringing it back. You're composing yourself, trying to say, all right, let's review.
We used to get in knockdown, drag out fights over stuff that we know now doesn't really even matter. But we came across that knowledge through experience, for sure.
Absolutely. I think
And
that's a great
fucking up
thing.
a little.
Yeah, and breaking everything we could.
Dude, there's a really nice honeysuckle note that comes through on this one
Yep.
that I really enjoy. And like I said, it's such a mind mush because I'm not expecting that floral note to come through on that wheat.
This one is probably my go-to everyday sipper because it's a good middle proof, right? It's not low, it's not high, and it has some of that light sweetness with still some spice in there. And it usually retails somewhere around $40.
Yeah, it's about
so
as
it's not going to break the bank.
affordable of a craft
Bottle and bond.
bib that you can get anywhere.
Fair enough.
And now let's taste the cast strength version of it.
Cash strength.
Julian wasn't originally going to pull this one, but I've been really liking
Yeah,
it.
this was a Blake request. I honestly haven't had it since I pulled it. So
So listen, we always want to do cash strength because like it's the way it was intended.
Yep. And we on all this
It's the
stuff
way it
too.
came out of the barrel.
We do very minimal filtering, right? So we just basically do clarity, non-chill clarity filtering, which has become more and more of the industry standard. In that it takes as little away from the barrel as possible.
Yeah. Anytime people get crazy about single barrel releases, if you see NCF on there, that non-chill filtration, people are like, oh.
Yeah, and one thing maybe people don't understand is pretty much all whiskey and bourbon is filtered to some extent.
When they say
Right.
non-chill filter, generally what they mean is there was a particulate filter and a diatomaceous earth filter, right, of some sort. There are some new filters that I have been experimenting with, which were just released in the last handful of months, which are supposed to do an even better job than the diatomaceous earth. But
I don't know what that means.
Oh, so yeah, diatomaceous earth, right? You've probably heard that fancy terminology. I love it. It's a cool little story because a lot of people don't know that diatoms are these tiny little organisms that live in the sea, and they actually make a majority of the oxygen that we breathe. Most of it doesn't come from the trees. It comes from these huge diatom blooms. So they basically are deposited everywhere where there used to be seas. There used to be a sea here, right? In Indiana. So they dig up this earth and they make the filters out of the remnants of these diatoms.
Oh.
And they are organic matter
that's
that
cool.
basically just sucks up all of the particulate matter in whiskey and leaves all the delicious flavors.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I was going to ask a even sideways weird question because
Go
most
ahead.
people. So I've been having a lot of conversations about corks, synthetic versus OG.
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys are using synthetics. I don't care one way or the other, but there are some purists that say X, Y, Z. So what's your all's opinion on that?
I don't think it matters in the sense of does it make a difference in the flavor of the whiskey that you have?
We're talking about whiskey, not corks, right?
Yeah, but
Okay, good.
But yeah, it's. I just always it's funny. People like, well, I think a regular cork does a better job. Blah, blah. I'm like, how does it do a better job?
So once it's in the bottle, it's more about how many times you've opened it, if you've decanted it, right?
Yeah.
All these other things. The thing a cork does, right, is if, God forbid, at some point during the aging or transport or whatever, it turns on its side, it gets wet, it disintegrates, right?
Yeah, actually, most people will say, I think the synthetic ones are better.
long
in the
term,
in the
right?
long-
You would
yeah.
think so, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is that I think, what was it? We were just on like a quick cast the other night, and one of our mutual friends ended up breaking a cork.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
And I've
I
had
would
some
think,
very expensive bottles that I've purchased that the cork pops off in them, right? And
Or even
what are we
fancy
doing?
wine, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you see it all the time. So that's the reason I always curious, like, how do industry professionals feel about it versus like
Well, I
the
do
average
also
person?
know there is or has been some shortage of cork, right? Because it comes from an actual cork tree,
Yeah.
right? So we're talking about limited
Portugal,
resources
Spain, right, exactly.
versus the synthetics, which are obviously easier to come by.
And one thing about all this stuff, right? I mean, you're hearing our opinions. Everybody has opinions and
Humble
theories
opinions.
and what works and what doesn't work. So let's make sure we keep that in mind.
Yeah, 100%.
There's very few things that we are super opinionated about, in
Right.
that we say that that's the only way you should do things.
And we know what
if you-
everybody says about opinions, right?
right? Everybody has one, right?
100%.
I was just going to say, I don't ever have a problem with corks because my bottles don't last long.
There we go. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it.
And this is why we call him the legend.
The cork comes off and it's done, right?
And then drink it.
It doesn't last long, I can tell you.
all right.
Around
While you guys are sniffing and tasting this, I do have a question. Kind of going back to kind of some of your processes and early mad scientist trial and errors. If you want to talk a little bit about your entry proofs that you put into the barrels and what type of barrel char levels do you guys use?
Yeah, so we actually, when we started, we used 5-gallon barrels, primarily 3 char, but some 4 char.
We're talking about 2015 and
so
2016.
a long time ago, way back in the day for us.
Small batches.
Yes, exactly. We were making. We walked by our still out there on the way into the distillery. Right, it's the size of an industrial trash can. That was our first still. So we were making roughly 5 gallons at a time. We tried to scale the barrels as quickly as we could afford to, because while you can make some good product in 5-gallon barrels, it's just not the same as a 53-gallon barrel for 4, 6, 8, 10 years, right? So we went through a lot of trial and error. We tried low proof, we tried 125, we tried distilling at 160, we tried distilling at 110, everything in between. And we did that all the way up through our 53-gallon barrels. And in fact, we tested about every 53-gallon barrel that we could reasonably get our hands on cost wise. So we've tried it all. We threw it all at the wall, and like Blake alluded to earlier, we're just now getting back. We're 10 years old, but we're really we've had the good and bad luck of selling everything that we've made. So I'm a 10-year-old distiller with my oldest juice being 4 or 5 years old.
Of our own distillate.
Yeah, of our own distillate. So we're really now just getting that data back to look at, taste through, and start to make some sense of this worked, this didn't work.
But in my opinion, as
or this is better, this is not as good.
Last Saturday, I was hosting a barrel pick, and man, we tried way too many barrels. But and I told Julian this. I typically do the sales and marketing kind of stuff, and host some of the outside groups. And he's definitely doing a little bit more of it too. But when we tried, I think about 3 or 4 weededs, 3 or 4 high rise, anywhere between 4 and about 5 years old of our distillate. I think we're gravitating towards around 115 to 118 entry proof. Tend to be, at least at that age, we like them a little bit more, and the customers and consumers like them a little bit more. Now we'll see what 6, 7, 8 years brings. Obviously, every year is a little bit different, and that's if you want something a little bit younger but still a robust product, you tend to go a little bit lower entry proof. You want something a little bit longer, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years, you're going to probably want a little bit higher entry proof.
Yeah. And also, some of the low chars have done particularly well with some of the younger, lower entry proofs. We're just now getting some, because we didn't really start doing low chars until kind of into our 53-gallon foray already. But there's definitely some promise there, at least for getting as good of a product as possible at that 2, 4, 6 year range.
So this weeded barrel strength, I'm really digging this one.
I really like it.
The bottle to bond is good, but this is something different.
It's way
different
more
styles.
full-bodied.
Yeah,
right?
it's just
And
got so much more texture and layering to it.
Yep.
Which you would hope from a barrel proof, right?
You get so much
not
more.
always. Sometimes when you proof stuff down, like it opens up the whiskey, right? Like you get more flavors and things like this. But there's something about this particular difference in that same mash bill, same.
Yeah, when we were behind the bar picking bottles for this, Julian was like grabbing a few, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I like that. But I've been really liking this one recently. Like I've been drinking a couple glasses here and there over the last few weeks with folks, and we don't have a lot left. I mean, I think we only have a couple cases of this particular release left.
And this will be one that we do, semi-regularly, in that when we come across a really good cask strength weeded bourbon, it just says, hey, make me cask strength, please. Right?
Distillery only, unless someone's doing a barrel pick, right?
Well, that's what I was just about to kind of segue to a little bit. If you want to talk a little bit about your single barrel program, I saw a little bit on your webpage about it. How do people try to get in contact with you guys for, maybe coming out here and try to pick a barrel?
So retailers, we do a fair amount of single barrels with, like grocery stores, right? Sometimes bars and restaurants. But if folks are curious and, you find us, you like our stuff, go to our website, fill out the form, and it comes directly to me. And when I respond, that is my cell phone. I tell people don't abuse it, but use it. And so, we like selling single barrels. That's the most fun that we have as a distiller and a distillery. Is that it really allows us to get to know the customer. And for me, the reason why I really like it beyond getting to know the customer is I know how the customer is reacting to the product. And so we learn a lot in that as a younger distillery. To see what they like, what they don't like. And you don't usually get that, especially after a couple drinks. People get a little bit more opinionated, and we like that. We like to hear what people think. We cannot get better at what we are doing unless people tell us what they like and don't like about what we're doing. And I really think that that has helped us over time, evolve and put out better products. But
also cultivate the relationships with all of these people, right? Because they
spend
come
time
in,
drinking together.
Yeah, they come in and they see how open and honest we are about everything, because we are as open book as any distillery out there. And I'll tell you my yeast, right? I'll tell you my cook temperatures. I'll tell you the brand of my filters, right? Like, we're so much more open book than you get at a typical larger distillery experience, where a lot of the tour guides and other people don't even necessarily know all of those stats, right?
I mean, it's literally me or Julian probably back there, giving the tour. I'm coming in on a Saturday, right? Family's at home. Wife might be bitching at me because I got to work on a Saturday. I'm giving a tour, right? We're jumping through the barrels,
tasting whatever, or however many you want.
Yeah, tasting it with you. I mean, that's about as raw and authentic as open as anybody can be.
That's awesome. This, cast strength wheat is amazing. I think it's the extra cast, the proofage, really kind of stands out a little bit. I noticed that from like mouthfeel, it ups it another notch.
Yeah,
to
there's way more of a hug with this one, right?
Oh yeah, I can tell whenever you sit it in the mouth, just let it sit on the palate for a little bit, then you kind of like breathe out. You can kind of really tell how it gravitates.
Yeah, there's just more of everything, and it changes the dynamic of the drink totally.
And I actually prefer a rye whiskey or a high rye bourbon. That's kind of my thing. So finding a wheater that has
Some spice and full-bodiedness.
exactly
Yeah.
like
Well,
there's
sorry
some,
we didn't pull either of those tastes today.
We can.
I'm sure
They're right over there.
I'm sure we can find a bottle. That's what I was about to say. I don't think you all will disappoint me and let me go home without trying some of the rye. But yeah, I always laugh because everybody's different, right? Like I've got some of my buddies, like they only drink wheated whiskey. And I'm like, dude, like you guys are missing out on such good stuff. And they're like, oh, that rye is just too much spice. It's too much this. I'm like, but it adds so much character and
And it can come off minty.
spice.
It doesn't
It
necessarily come off
or
spicy.
melony or
Yeah.
raisiny,
Or
right?
dill.
Yep,
I mean,
or
yeah,
dill.
there's lots of
Yep.
different things, yeah.
Before we get away from these first two, I'm going to be the outlier and say that I like the bottled and bond better.
Okay.
I got more flavor and character out of that than I did the higher proof.
Yeah, it's definitely easier to pull stuff out of that.
Yeah.
For sure.
You know, it's not that I don't like higher proof. It's just that this one just hit me that way.
Love it.
Yeah.
I'm just glad you liked one.
Yeah.
The legend likes whiskey, right? That's one of the reasons we bring him around. And he's usually the guy that will give you a fair assessment. Like he'll say, not really my cup of tea, or I could see where somebody might like it, but it's not what I like.
And that's okay.
And he will tell you how much he loves finished whiskeys.
Yeah, he does not like finished whiskey at all.
Actually,
okay.
one of our good industry friends who helps run a pretty big blog, I'm not going to name, and I was with him yesterday, and we were talking about bourbon, hates finished whiskey.
Right.
He's always like, Blake, you're not going to make me try one of those finished bourbons, right? I'm like, no, I know you better than that.
But you should make him try it.
No, not this particular one. He's not. He'll be like, it's fine,
And
and I'll be like, it's fucking good.
but that's what you should do, right? Like if you don't make them try it, like I was that guy. Like I did not want finished whiskey. But then the more and more I tried different things, like I'll tell you right now, some of the VDN stuff I've tried has been some of my favorite whiskeys, especially like a VDN rye. Oh my God, like that citrus meld and that creamy creamsicle note that goes with that spice is amazing.
We would argue that the way we do finishing is some of the best out there, and then competitions have told us that it's some of the best out there, which we'll get to next. We do have one finished in the lineup that we're going to try a rum finish.
It's a rummy.
I like it better in our double oak. But now we're getting into the Hamer brand a little bit here. So the Hamer brand, historic Indiana whiskey brand from the 1800s, pays homage to the Hamer family out of Spring Mill. Well, it's a state park now. It's Spring Mill Village back in the day. So a little bit south of Bedford there, where we're all from, so close to Mitchell. And it's built off a 99% corn mash bill, so very unique. As far as we know, we're definitely at scale the only people to develop it as a standalone mash bill. And we really like this one, not just because, if you're making an Indiana bourbon, this is fucking Indiana bourbon. But it is corn forward, sweet, sometimes fruit or cherry, depending on the single barrel.
Very malleable mash bill.
Yeah, and we can manipulate it a lot.
That's what I was about to say. I was trying to. If you didn't notice, I went to to the crook of the arm, try to reset my smell, and I was like I was getting sweet and a little bit of fruit. I was like, should I really get this for 99 corn? And I just went back and checked to make sure I was getting that.
You are.
Yep. And that stays with it, and it comes out in different ways at different ages. We're just now starting to play with some of the older ones. A lot of these have kind of a nice cinnamon sweetness. Some have this awesome bazooka bubblegum thing that
Or
we
even
found
cherry
in a lot of
bombs.
them. Yeah, cherry bombs, right? So there's a lot of stone fruit that comes out, and we were just talking before the podcast. We're looking to get our first samples of the 12-year-old stuff that we own because we've done an 8-year release. We will be trying the 10-year, which is coming up. But this mash bill does so much cool stuff, and every 2 years that you try it, it is a totally different animal.
I actually don't think we like it a lot at 5 to 6.
Yeah, it goes through this weird kind of, I don't know what I am yet.
Yep.
I'm not grown
We like
up,
it at
right?
4.
It's like the
It's going through
rebellious, it's the rebellious teenage phase.
No, seriously.
Right? Like, I'm not going to be delicious for a
At
minute.
4, it's really good. It's ethanol forward, but it's kind of fruit cherry forward. And at 5 and 6, it gets confused, and then it starts to come around at 7 and 8.
Yeah, and it decides whether it wants to be more of the full-bodied, typical bourbon experience or that kind of fruity, different, bubblegummy, and everything in between.
Yeah, the sweetness level is just insane.
And that's all that corn
It's
in
all
there.
that corn in there. But it's funny, like you all were talking about all these fruits. And like with this particular one, I was drinking it, and I was like, there's a stone fruit in here. Like there's like an apricot-y type like taste to it, but like it's cornbread. Like
Cornbread, baby.
Yeah, I mean it's dead up like cornbread with like you put little slice of peach or apricot or something in there.
It was almost kind of like a vanilla apricot, almost like a, if you can do it, creamsicle or a dreamsicle, whatever you want to, and just
Yep, we've gotten a lot of that.
and just taking out that orange and put in apricot.
Yep.
For that. That's what I was getting off the nose.
And the cool thing about that, it's a single barrel product, right? So every batch of it is going to have different nuance.
Yeah, the Old Hamer single barrel that we're trying. I mean, everyone's different, and you can find it in the market between $35-ish and $40,
which is insane for a single barrel product.
Oh,
of-
yeah,
of 4+
absolutely.
years,
an everyday
right?
one.
Have you guys been double oaking these at all?
Yes.
Yeah. So our most highly rated product is a Hamer Double Oak.
In fact, we
product.
almost won the best finished whiskey
It was
in the
rated
world
yeah,
last year.
We won top 5 and top 3 finished whiskeys in the world at San Francisco and International Whiskey Competition. It's been rated many times around mid-90s and 99 out of 100. You do blinds with it with other double oaks. Usually does pretty damn well.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I think because it would give off that extra little marshmallowy and like maybe a little chocolate notes that come off that secondary finish.
Bourbon people love oak, caramel, and vanilla,
and it does all that.
tannins, and so it just talk about we're both field goal kickers from high school and a touch in college. You want to talk about right down the middle? That one's right down the middle for a good bourbon person.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm about to say, just want to say also, as you're talking about awards, just want to say congratulations. We were looking at the news that you guys got 5 recent rewards from the World Whiskey Awards.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that was the first time we had medaled at that competition. And that was an interesting one. It's really folks. The thing I like about it is they have both Kentucky awards and non-Kentucky, and I like that because we aren't trying to chase Kentucky, and there's still really good product out there, and it also brings together a lot of different styles of whiskey and bourbon. Again, just whiskeys in general from around the world. It is a true international competition where there's subsets. They do like international European styles, they do Asian styles, they do American styles, and like the folks that win from those categories, right? Not just medal, but end up winning in individual categories. They go compete in an international stage, and they bring together judges from all over the world. So you get a lot of really, really good feedback at that one. And we won a couple golds, a couple silvers, a bronze, and that one's really, really hard to compete at, because again, small suppliers, big suppliers, everybody goes to that one.
Yeah.
And
now
if you've
that-
ever heard Icons of Whiskey, that's that one.
Yeah.
And now that we have, 4 or 5-year-old West Fork whiskey product, we're starting to actually get some awards for that product because it's not aged in small barrels for a short period of time, which generally judges uniformly dislike.
Yeah, it's so we actually have a couple of private groups that I belong to where we buy barrels and have fun with the 120, 140 members that are in there. And we recently...
Do you want a barrel? Do you want to buy a barrel?
We might very well. But like I always say, it's funny. One of the barrels we picked at one of the other distilleries, they're like, dude, this might be one of the best single barrels we've ever released. And I was like, well, release it and see what happens. So he literally sent it away and it got gold.
Nice.
So I was like, well, that's
Groups at a lot of these competitions can now, like I know Ascot and a few others do have, like if you got a group out there, like
Entry for
you can enter,
non-distillers.
for just groups picking, thinking
Yeah.
their barrel's the best, put it out there with it.
Yeah. So we did really well with ours, and I was like, I laughed when he called me up. He's like, dude, this thing got gold, and I was like, man, we knew it was a good barrel, right? Like it's just funny when you sit back and you think about those things. So
All right, so we're about ready to step into the finishes of Old Hamer. So when we finish Old Hamer, right, we actually give it the moniker Q Hamer. Hugh Hamer was the patriarch of the farm, right? So this is some of our oldest, best 99% corn, 1% malted barley. When we're tasting barrels, that go into our single barrel or our cast strength for Old Hamer, we pick the best ones. And then we lean into usually whatever they tell us they want to be. If they want to be sweet, we put them in a rum finish. If they want to be sassy, we generally put them in a double oak. But we've tried it the other way around, and honestly, it usually works out.
So this one's got a lot of color to it. Like in comparison to some of the other things we've tasted, this one's dark.
So we talked about this offline. Our finishes are longer than most people, right? They'll be 3, 6, maybe 9, maybe a year. This rum finish,
usually
I think,
at least a year,
was about 2.
Yes.
And actually, our best rum finishes are about 2 from a Cruzan rum. We tried Martinique rum
and Barbados.
Cruzan with the dark spice. Like, we're not trying to get the best rum. We're trying to get the best rum finish in our bourbon, right? So just because maybe you don't like the rum doesn't mean it's not perfect for what we are doing. And the Cruzan rums now, we pretty much stay to those because we really like what it does to the finish.
Oh yeah, I about to say I have an old recipe for Cruzan rum and fruit punch, old recipe that I was taught way back in like late '90s. It is really
Cruzan
good.
rum and fruit punch. Thanks for
Sounds
bringing
like
some.
sounds like a college
Yeah.
mixture.
It was. Yes,
Did we
it
make
was.
a big like 55-gallon drum of it?
No, you put it in a
trash
you,
can?
you put a
That
trash
usually has
bag in a
Everclear in
cooler,
it.
and then you put a bunch of ice in there, right?
The weird stipulation was that because at the
Everclear.
time we were down south, and you actually had to be on an island because the best fruit punch to use was the old canned fruit punch that you had to punch.
That's
dump-
real good stuff.
And then dump it in, and then you dump in just a whole bottle of Cruzan rum.
All right, this guy can party.
Yeah. He said.
So these are really cool, and one of the things that I would argue, and some people, based on the competitions and how they have been awarded, it's a really good mash bill to finish, and we talked about it was malleable, right? And rum finishes are really difficult in that in finishes in general they usually fight each other, right? The bourbon and the finish fight each other. What this one has done after a couple years in that barrel, it's a really nice complement. It gives a sweet spice and some molasses to it, and
It's subtle. It doesn't just punch you in the face with the rum, right?
Exactly.
That rum is there. It's nice. It plays a nice little character, but it's well
Complementary.
slotted within the whole experience of the drink.
So on that, how do you land at 103 proof?
That was with some experimentation. Basically, what we were looking for there is the best elements of a cast strength with the best elements of a low proofer, right? So when you do the lower proof, you guys know, it's easier to pull out certain nuances. It changes the character, less of that alcohol, ethanol flavor, right, and that bite that dances with the whole experience. Whereas cast strength, right, those things are more dominant and more playful, and honestly, they're generally geared towards people who are not necessarily bourbon neophytes, right? So we were hoping and thinking, and we still obviously believe this, that this is kind of right down the middle, and that it can hit those awesome things that you like about a cast strength product, but also it's approachable for people who may not be as well, initiated and like all that super high proof, very ethanol-y experience.
So this was proof to 103 then.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you get low proof cast strength, right? Like we saw a barrel of some, I want to say it was like a 9-year-old MGP, but it was like 5149 mash bill, and it was 97 proof in the cask. Like,
Interesting.
I mean, like
How was that?
It was delicious.
Yeah?
It was a crazy.
That's a fun mash bill.
Yeah, we haven't come across one from MGP that low.
Yeah.
But it is crazy.
It must have been on floor 1 next to the river.
right next to the air conditioner,
Yeah.
right?
So I've been known to completely dislike finished product,
We heard.
but this one is very, very good. There's something very special and different about this versus the sherries and ports and
Notoriously,
other finishes.
I hate, and a lot of people either like or dislike wine, right? Port finishes, cab finishes, and some people, we've done them before,
Yeah.
and some people like them. I honestly think this is our most underrated bourbon,
100%.
finished bourbon that we make. When people actually try it and hang out with it, they're like, damn, there's something kind of cool about this one, right? And again, that rum is a nice complement, and it's melded well together.
I think
and
you're
it underperforms at scoring.
Yeah, I think you're speaking towards how soft that rum is in there, right? It doesn't dominate at all. It just is nicely positioned within the entire drink in that it still tastes very much like bourbon, right?
Well, what I see here is that the wine finishes detract from the bourbon. Whereas this, and I know that we talked before about tequila, I think tequila and rum add something to the bourbon.
Yeah.
So that you're getting not only the bourbon flavor, but you're also getting the nice complement of the other finish.
Yeah, and it doesn't cover anything up, right?
Right.
It's all still there.
That's why I don't like wine finishes, because when I drink them, I'm like, that's grape, that's vermouth.
See, I like them, but they have their place in time, right? It's not the same experience.
100%.
Absolutely.
I can pour this and enjoy it.
Yeah.
One thing I think is really complementing it is kind of those sugarcane sugars that are really coming in, because you're already expecting kind of that kind of vanilla sweetness. Kind of sometimes you get that brown sugar molasses out of bourbon, and if you really pair that with a bourbon that has those characteristics, kind of sliding that rum, molasses, sugarcane kind of with it. Oh man, this one's hitting really good.
And that's why we actually moved away from the Barbados and the white rums, right? Because they were more of just that sugarcane grainy sweetness, and it started to cover up the sweetness of the corn and the bourbon notes, right? So that's, I think, why Cruzan does so well with this product, is that it has a excellent balance of spice but sweetness that doesn't cover the corn sweetness and just fits right in there so nicely the entire time with that drink.
If you guys ever want to dip your toe into some other like weird or exotic rums, I'm really good friends with the guys at Rolling Fork, and they have Barbados, Trinidad, Jamaican.
Great. And they're doing a lot of that out of Starlight, right?
Yeah.
I mean, great spot, great people. I mean,
that's
the
awesome.
Hubers are awesome.
Yeah, we love Starlight.
So I know Turner and Jordan real well. Matter of fact, we just had them on the show for the second or third time, and like they've got some. They're now bringing in tons of Calvados and Armagnacs, and that's kind of their new labeling brand, dude. Insane stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So I always tell people, like, I think this industry is great if you can put people together.
Yeah.
Because really that's what makes everybody better, is when you lift each other
Well, if you
up.
think about Kentucky and their history, right, all these people have come together over time. I mean, you can talk about the fires, right, and people banding together, I don't know, what, 80s, 90s, whatever some of them were. But look, if we were all going to survive and thrive, at some point we were all competitors, sure, but we need to work together to grow the industry and educate people about the artisan and the craft. So we couldn't agree more.
Be gentle, legend. You got to say
We
something
can
for
we
Nick.
can get more. I just
Yeah, we believe it or not, we have more of that.
I figured
what's
as
funny
much.
though, out of this first batch, we only have 2 more bottles left. It's in the office upstairs.
So this is actually a single barrel. It
I thought
is.
you did 2. No, you did 2.
Oh, I thought this was from the batch that I pulled that was single barrels.
Nope.
No. Okay, so we did our first batch. We thought we were going to do a single barrel, but we ended up blending 2 barrels for our first batch of 10 year.
Yeah, so we didn't even talk. We just kind of jumped
sorry.
into it. So Old Hamer 10 year. We've got a whole mess of barrels between 10 and 12 years. It's the first,
And they are awesome.
from our knowledge, extended age, 99% corn, 1% malted barley that's really been released. And it's a fun mash bill when it gets this old. And we diluted it down to 100 proof. We're not doing cask strength. We really looked at a lot of bourbons between the ages of 8, 9 years and 12, 13 years, see what proofs they were releasing. And you guys know this. It's all over the place. It's like 90s to cask strength, right? And so we thought, again, 100 proof, good middle ground for those folks that like something lower but still want, some depth, but also folks who like cask strength, but, maybe they want to drink a couple glasses.
It's weird, initially on the nose, I'm getting almost like some rye-esque like notes and things like that. There's definitely a little bit of a floral note. It's got some spice.
And I've
for
been
10 years
wondering-
old, that's unusual. I would think for
It's
99.1.
strange, but I'm also wondering, because you're not the first person that said that,
Yep.
if that is a byproduct of this being aged in 4-char barrels as well, and maybe those rye recipes are getting that because they are typically aged in 4-char Speyside barrels, and maybe that's more a product of the 4-char Speyside barrel than it is necessarily the mash bill.
It absolutely could be. I mean, people don't really give enough credit to how much flavor comes out of the barrel anyway.
Yeah.
All of its color and most of its flavor.
Yeah,
That's what,
Not
that's what we
forget
like
that.
to say.
But I will also say this. Sometimes oak can be misconstrued for rye or spice.
Absolutely.
Fair.
Like that flavor,
Absolutely.
like when you taste oak sometimes.
All those resins in there. that
Exactly.
come out,
The tannins, the resins, the lignins that come out of that marry with that liquor
Mm-hmm.
gives it definitely a different flavor profile. And some people will misconstrue those two things.
And I really think that's a product of not just those resins and flavors, right, but the oxygenation that happens over time, because you generally don't get much mint or anything until one of those barrels is 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, right?
Fair.
And so you get a lot of oak flavor in a barrel after a couple seasons, but as we all know, the barrels are not liquid permeable, but they're oxygen permeable, right? And that oxygenation doesn't really start happening in a meaningful way until year 4, 5, 6, 7. So,
Also, we don't all know that.
oh, sorry. Yeah. Now, if you didn't know, now you know.
If you've taken a tour, some places should have told you at some point that the reason barrels are so far apart is because they need oxygen.
Yeah,
or what the devil's cut and angels cut.
yeah. I guess a lot of people don't realize how big a part of the equation and why bourbon gets really flavorful after 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years is because, all those oak flavors have been pushed in and out several times, but the oxygen has time to start these esterification processes and acetylation processes, which change all of those beautiful oak compounds into what makes bourbon taste like all these delicious things.
And this is why we love having distillers on the conversation, not just people that sell it.
I've been on a lot of tours, and it was only 2 weeks ago that I was somewhere where that discussion took place. It wasn't a discussion about history or family, or it was a discussion about fermentation, about aging, about oxygenation. And I told the other people that I was with that they learned more that day than they could have learned anyplace else.
So let us ask you this, because we are revamping our tour and educational program right now behind the scenes. Would you, as bourbon nuts and bourbon consumers, care more about who the hell we are in our history, or more about what makes us different in the technical aspects, right? I mean, we struggle with that as to what type of tour and educational.
Where do we cut
what do
the
we
line?
do?
Because obviously my background is in biochemistry, biology. I went to medical school, right? I can be as nerdy as anyone likes for me to be.
Right. I would say, and I'll let somebody else chime in a minute, I would say that it has to be both. You have to tell the story of what makes you guys you, right? Like you started in a small warehouse, things like that. That's something that's endearing about the company and about the brand, right? But I think the technical side is so important, because if people don't understand what makes whiskey, then therefore they don't know why bourbon is bourbon, why whiskey is whiskey, why this is this. And if they don't understand the true science behind it and how important oxygen is, and how important how you keep your rick house and your everything spaced and all those things, then they don't know why when they walk into a building why it is the way it is. Like, there's science behind this. Like, this shit has been going on for hundreds of years, and we've only gotten better at it because we understand the science of it.
And something that's a little different about us is we really kind of did this in a vacuum, right? I knew enough to be dangerous when we started, but we didn't hire consultants, right? We just started trying to do things in the way that we thought would be good. So we do a lot of things very differently from the way that people told me I had to do them in order to be successful. There were so many people that told me I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that, I couldn't do that. And it just is all built up on the way things were done, not the reasons why they were done, right? So we've challenged a lot of that, and I think we've made big headway there.
Yep. And this has got a ton of sweet oak.
I think Scott hit the nail on the head that you need to do both. But with all the tours that I've been on, I've got way more history and background about the company, the distillery, the grounds, all that. The technical part just blew me away 2 weeks ago.
Where were you at? Give them a shout out.
Yeah. Who did it?
Louisville Whiskey Company.
I've had some of their product recently. We're getting ready to release our products in Kentucky, and I was there about a month ago for a couple meetings, and I went to some liquor stores, and I don't think it's sold in Indiana. It might be sold in Indiana.
It's not been distributed
I've
in
not-
Indiana.
I've not
okay.
actually
So I
had
came
any.
across it, and I was like, all right, give me.
Had I known, I would have brought y'all some. I've got plenty.
Yeah, I've not actually
I was
had
like,
it.
let me try that. I mean, they're doing some good stuff. Labels are sexy. They're-
Probably the sexiest on market. That's
really?
the one that they're like a bow tie.
now I'm
like,
offended.
listen, you guys have good looking labels.
We were having fun.
I love split labels. I do.
Kidding. I'm
kidding.
kidding.
But I'm just saying
they look great. They look great.
But that's to me like branding is 100% of what sometimes moves stuff off the shelf the first time.
You got to get it to jump in someone's mouth, right?
Exactly.
Because if they don't taste it, it could be the best thing in the world.
We struggle with that. You're talking about people that are. I come from a finance and corporate banking background. He comes from a scientific background, a medical background.
Dave's a lawyer, right?
Yeah, I mean, dude, you're talking about compliance, law,
HR.
I mean, you're not like. You didn't hear marketing and branding in that, right? Like, we underestimate that, and we get annoyed with each other. Actually, those two get annoyed with me when I'm like, guys, this is important.
It's
Less so now, man. I thought
No,
in the beginning
you're on it now.
well, I thought in the beginning, if you make something good enough, people will just recognize that, and
They
that'll be
will,
enough,
but
right?
they have to try it the first time.
It's you
we can't hand sell
You
it,
gotta do
right?
it.
How's it going to sell itself?
Yeah, you can't go to every Meijer or
we
every
both
Kroger.
we both have young families,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So while we love to come in on the weekends and do stuff like this, right? Like, I can't spend 12 hours a day every day of the week out there trying to get stuff in people's mouths. Like, we actually have to do meaningful marketing.
Right.
And
100%.
we are, I feel like, starting to hit our stride there.
I think we're in the best place we've ever been from a product standpoint. And problem is, though, industry's turning.
Yeah,
I love
changing.
I love the hammer labels.
Yeah.
I love these. These are nice.
It's
They're
actually
different
going in
colors. They're different.
I don't know if we said this publicly, but it's actually going into a
Yep, released
completely
on this.
custom glass soon.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Embossed.
Cool. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. These are the Tennessee Echo bottles or one of those.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you know your shit.
Yep, that's the
But
Tennessee
this is-
Echo.
I was born at night. It wasn't last night.
My kids were born in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
But no, they're completely custom glass.
Yeah, that's nice.
So I was going to quick say I agree with both what Scott and Legend had mentioned. The one thing that I would say that I've noticed on a number of things is that you need to kind of know who your audience is, because the thing is that us being in Kentucky and Louisville, we have a lot of people know that a lot of locals still do tours. Up here in Indy, you have less of that industry, as people have that general knowledge.
In Indy, in bourbon and whiskey, and tours and education, we're basically it.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Getting at is that we.
I mean, there's some
in
other
the
people
Louisville
doing
area-
some cool stuff in around
Yeah.
Central Indiana, but in terms of bourbon, like tours and education, not as robust.
But
as
you're
we are.
100% right. It's totally different populations, right?
And
There's
so
so
it's-
much more general education and knowledge in the Louisville crowd than there would be in the Indianapolis crowd.
Right, and that's where I was going to get at, is that maybe take a poll, like a couple places I've gone to, like in northern Kentucky, southern in Cincinnati area, they'll ask, hey, where are you all from? If you get nobody from Kentucky, that you need to start kind of thinking on, as you're talking about your the company itself, you kind of get a little bit more of you don't have to go technical, like deep technical,
more of the basics.
but you can go over like the high end basics, like really get people involved and knowledgeable.
Whenever I do tours, and then I do want to go back to, because we've completely skated over the 10-year,
I'm
which
sorry.
is a really exciting release from us. Maybe our one of the most exciting.
I said it was oaky and sweet and
We'll
good.
get, and I can always go get more. But one of the things I always ask, I even if it's a bourbon club, doesn't matter who you are, is how many people have gone on a tour? How many people think that they love bourbon?
Yep.
Right? Because then I can tailor my message and the depth. Like, sure, I
Absolutely.
can't get quite as scientific as Julian, but I know more than the layperson, right? And that gives me the ability to understand, Legend, that balance of let's have some technical parts, and we don't like to talk about ourselves. Actually, we hate it, and that's been a criticism we've gotten from the market is, why don't you guys talk about yourselves more? And it's like, because we want to talk about the fucking whiskey.
And that's fair, right? Like I understand people saying that to you, but like you also have a specific job. Your job is to sell whiskey.
It is.
Like, so it's like I said, I think there's a safe space of you, especially like if you're giving a tour, right? Like you're sitting there and you're going through, you can be like, hey dude, like this is not what I was born to do. This became my passion in life, right? Or a semi-purpose, right?
Wait, you don't think I was born to sell whiskey?
No, not at all. That was not what you were born to do. You were obviously born to do something else, but this became what your passion was to do, right?
You weren't born to do this?
Nobody's born to do
You want to
anything.
put this
I don't
baby in
think.
a corner?
I mean, but listen, you even said so yourself.
You don't
like,
think I'm good at selling whiskey?
I didn't say you weren't good at selling whiskey. What I'm saying is that what
Let's
are you
shut this
born-
shit down.
What are you born to do, right? Like everybody
Sell fucking bourbon.
I was born to make it. What are you guys talking about?
Yeah, like I'm confused.
That was not your first job, is my point. Like, it's not
That
what
doesn't
you
mean I
chose
wasn't
to do.
born to do it.
That's probably fair. That's probably fair.
Now we're having fun.
There we go.
But that's my point. Like, is like I was never meant to be a banker, but that's what I do, right?
I mean, I'm a former corporate banker.
Right. So, but that's my point. Like, so you're a finance guy. You're like me. Like, you're nerdy. You know numbers. You do this, things like that. But you like whiskey,
I fucking love whiskey.
and it's a passion. Like, so that's how this podcast became what it was. You know.
We have risked
Everything.
our entire livelihoods on whiskey and bourbon.
Right.
Yep.
So
We're in it.
and that's the biggest thing for me. Is that's my biggest passion. Is whenever I see people that risk it for the biscuit. Like, that's massive. Like, that is huge. Like,
We
I have
guarantee
so much
millions
respect.
of dollars in debt.
I respect that though. Like,
That
I
we
respect people
definitely do not have.
that you're like, you know what? I'm a gambler.
Yeah.
I'm all in.
All the
Like,
chips are in there.
You shoved your chips in and you said, you know what? We're going to make this work. And to me, you guys are making it work. You're making a good product. You're making solid.
Oh,
Distance.
Legend's going
He's
for a
going back for
finished
more.
product. I love
Oh,
it.
He's going back
pour
for a
number
second.
2 of a finish.
three.
We have a changed man over
That's
here.
three.
Oh,
That's-
wow.
That's number 3.
All right, so we need to know from you guys. Again, I'm all about collecting data and learning feedback from the three of you. Which one did you like the best and why?
Man, that's really hard.
And-
You can
and
do a
let's
couple
remind them.
honorable
So
mentions.
we did bottle and bond.
Yep.
We did cask strength. We did Old Hamer single barrel 100 proof. We did rum finish, and we did Old
Finished
Hamer
on the
10-year.
10-year.
Yeah. The 10-year to me was really, really good. I liked those oak notes. I appreciated the spice that came off
Definitely
that
more
oak.
oaky and tannin.
Yeah, like I liked that. Like it had like this leather feel to it. It had a really nice coat on the mouth.
It tastes like an older, more sophisticated
It
bourbon.
does. It tastes like a more sophisticated bourbon. I really enjoyed that one.
How much do you think that would retail for?
I mean, how much should it retail for, or how much does it retail for? Those are two different questions.
Shoot from the hip. Tell
Let's
me
do
how
the
much you
should.
think
So
that
if
is.
it's bottled in bond, you're at 100 proof. Like that should sell around $79.99 to $89.99. That's what it should sell for. That's what it should sell.
What
for.
do you think it's going to retail for?
I would assume it would retail around 99 to 129.
$84.99.
Perfect. You guys are killing it. That's awesome. Like to me, that's the thing. Like if you can make good whiskey and you can keep it at the price point that
And
it
honestly,
should
we're
be
pissed
at,
that it's that expensive.
A big part of what we do.
it's really
is-
hard to make a 10-year-old whiskey less than that.
Yeah,
like anymore.
Anytime
now.
we do a release, even whether it's our distiller's release that we just have one 30 or 53 gallon barrel, or a bigger release like multi-barrel 10-year batches, right? We drink it, and we often text each other over the course of several days to weeks like, I think this tastes like this much money, right? We don't price our things based off of we paid this much for the barrel. We price our things based off of we think it tastes this amount of dollars good.
Yeah, once it's over a certain threshold, right? Like, hey, we're making money now. What should or could it be?
And what do we think it competes
And
with?
also,
right?
we are very conscious. I mean, we are from Bedford, Indiana. All three of the co-founders were from a blue collar town, right?
Go Stars.
Wow, being
wow,
all
look at
stars.
that.
Wow, look at y'all are
Deep
from
pull.
Southern Indiana.
Deep
though.
pull.
I dated a girl from Bedford when I was
I mean,
young.
Bloomington,
My
Bedford,
condolences.
Bloomington, Bedford are the gateway to Southern Indiana. We're just now starting to be Southern Indiana folks. Then
She was Damon Bailey's niece.
Oh, we know Damon Bailey quite well.
I'm
so.
not touching any of that.
Damon's an awesome
Damon's
dude.
a good dude.
Love
Damon's
Damon.
a good dude. We played some pickup ball with him.
I actually blew out my knee at the same time as him, so we rehabbed at the high school
There you
together.
go.
Out,
Oh, that's
there
hilarious.
at BNL.
David's
have some
uncle,
conversations offline.
Rest in peace, as a business partner of Damon. But
Yep.
anyways,
and his son, one of my best
Yeah,
friends,
Heath.
is a business partner of his.
Oh, Henderson Bailey,
Yeah.
the thing.
Hawkins Bailey.
Bailey,
Hawkins
yeah,
Bailey.
My
yeah.
dad used to buy all his parts
Heath
there. My dad,
actually loves fucking
Yeah.
bourbon.
Heath Hawkins is
Okay.
where I
send him this
go
podcast
to.
now.
Yeah, Heath. Shout out to Heath.
I used to sit in their corporate seats at Assembly Hall when I was real,
Oh,
real young.
nice.
My dad,
Awesome.
my
Yep.
dad worked for Ohio Valley Ready Mix in Southern Indiana,
That's
and they
awesome.
bought all of their parts. from
So that's
Hawkins
David's
Bailey.
uncle.
Yeah.
And Julian, one of Julian's best friends.
Yeah,
Heath,
Small world.
and
Heath
David's
is awesome
cousin.
because he's one of the few guys that like
This turned into 3 degrees of something.
I can go to
Southern
his
Indiana.
But I can go to his bar. Heath will pull out all the old Pappies. He'll pull out all the Buffalo Trace antique collection. He always has all of it, right?
Right.
Like, and he's that guy that's like, let's drink it till it's on the floor.
Well, there you go. I need to go hang out with y'all.
I know, right?
Oh, we like to drink.
I love to drink, you know.
And
Like I
whether
said.
whether it be
Wait, did we get answers?
no,
Which
no.
one they
Oh,
like?
yeah,
to
yeah,
do?
we
Okay.
skirted
okay.
it. Let's go
So-
back. Let's
so
go back.
Back
All
to
right.
me. So
You
I
go.
didn't get to finish. So I really think the 10 years is probably my favorite
Yeah.
because of
Are
that.
you blinded by the age?
No, I don't think I am because of I like that oak. I like the tannins. I like that leather. I like that spice that's coming through on it. Second, honest to goodness, is probably the cast strength weeder, which I would have never. Had I come in here and you said, "Oh, that's going to be the one you like the best or the second best," I'd be like, "You're out of your mind. I don't like weeded whiskey that much." Delicious product. I like that.
Well, we did a weeded whiskey for a non-weeder, and we did a finished whiskey for a non-finished person. So I think we're doing the thing.
We're doing it right. I think we're doing it.
But that weeder's got that rye. Like I love rye.
Yep.
So then I would say probably the rum, and then the other one's just kind of. I could take either one in either way.
I mean, they're all good.
Fourth and fifth, right? Yeah, they're all. Yeah.
All right, the two that stand out for me is the tin and the cast strength weeder.
Yep.
I'm just saying that stands alone, just because I think I'm putting that in like 1A, 1B, and then 1B is going to be, I probably the rum finish,
Ooh,
the bottle and bond,
Yep.
and then the old hammer.
Yep.
Now these those three that I just said for 1B. Are very close together because the variance is going to be your single barrel on that old hammer because I really like this one, but I don't know if I go out and buy 2 months later, it's going to be a different single barrel probably at the store.
Yep.
But this one was really good. I could really enjoy it. But I think you're going to get more consistency out of your Hugh hammer because of what you're finishing it with.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
then that bottom bond is really good still too.
Yeah.
So as I said, it's kind of like a 1A, 1B thing. They're up there.
give it to the legend.
Give it to the legend.
What do we got?
So, again, I'll be the outlier. The rum finish is by far my favorite of the five.
I love it.
I love it.
We have a changed man over here.
It just hits all the points in my mouth. The finish is amazing. And I will be the first one to say that I have stayed away from Old Hamer products because I'd never had any before. And it was just like, you don't want to buy something that you don't know anything about because I've never heard anybody really talk about them.
Well, and you've probably been burnt by stuff that has a big price tag and a little flavor, right?
And finishes.
Oh, man, finishes. Oof.
But I'm very impressed with what we tasted today. My other choice would be the weeded bottle and bond. Again, I just got more from that than I did from the cast.
I'm going to turn his mic off. He's completely outlier.
No, the three he's not. The three he just decided on are my favorite.
Yeah.
And that's fair.
And fan
I just
favorites, too.
I like giving him a hard way to go. He's the legend. He has so many accolades
We can
anyway.
send you home with a bottle of finished rum finished bourbon. And I think we changed him. Well, actually, don't buy any other rum finishes. Just buy ours.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I didn't even know there were any other rum finishes.
There aren't. There really
with
aren't.
bourbon, you talk about bourbon rum finishes. There really aren't a lot.
They're few and far between.
And most of them just taste like rum flavored bourbon.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
I've got one more nerdy question. Whiskey without the E. Why? Or
Actually,
without the I or the E.
So
we joked that we took
Hell,
out
there's no I.
impurities and I don't know, something.
We've made a lot of jokes about it, but obviously that harkens back to the Protestant versus Catholic thing, right? And we're opening a lot of can of worms.
It looks
here.
really good in a square.
Yeah, it was mainly a decision
branding
of marketing,
decision.
not a decision of the history behind the
Correct.
spellings.
Let's not overcomplicate it.
The funny thing is that we always try to work in harkens a lot of our podcasts. And you did it for us. Thank you.
So one of my good buddies is a guy named Tyler. Tyler used to be I guess he was technically the single barrel manager at Old Forester. Anybody that knows me, I'm an Old fanboy. I love Old Forester. I have for a long time. And we were sitting around talking, and he goes, "Well, this all harkens back." I was like, "Who uses the word harkens? Like
Bourbon people.
Who does this?" And I was giving him grief about it. Now I've found myself that I use it way more than I should. And then I swear every time we run into somebody, somebody uses the word harkens. So it's funny.
Did I
now.
say it or did Blake?
You did.
You said it.
I
You
did
said
it. It
Joey,
was me.
yeah. So I laugh whenever you hear it.
Not even in my vocabulary.
Yeah. So it's funny when I hear it. And
I think maybe I've been watching too much Dune lately because I just think of the Harkonnens too, right? Ugh.
So Nick always, every time it gets said, Nick always is like, "Dude, there it goes." So, well, all right, guys, I want to be respectful of your time. If people want to come to West Fork, if they want to do a tour, if they want to do a tasting, hell, if they want to book the whole place out, right? Because you guys do that, right? It's like Ragu, it's in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
how do they do that? How do they
I mean,
reach you?
go to westforkwhisky.com. You can book reservations for our restaurant. You can book. We offer multiple tours today, but we're working on, increasing that experience. We're about to become a Stave and Thief Society partner, and so Julian's working on that with them down in Louisville.
Yeah, I recently did the executive bourbon stewardship that they're offering down there, which is
Nice.
an amazing class.
This is a super cool
And we're going to be an
class.
education partner.
Yeah.
So that's what we're really working on. You can do, we offer $5 tours for like your everyday kind of go through it, see
Quick
what
tour,
the distillery's
get a
like,
taste.
get a tasting, right? We
You get a tasting and a tour for
Yep.
$5?
That's That's an
Absolutely.
amazing price.
Yep.
$5.
Awesome.
That's
That's
right.
awesome.
Come in.
We really want people to take the plunge, right?
Yep.
We were talking about earlier how important the marketing was to get it in people's mouths, right? But if we can get them to pay $5 for a tour, try a little bit, the pull through on bottles makes more sense than it does if we charge 30, 40, 20, whatever, right?
Fair.
So wasn't it Pizza Hut that said regular price $5, $5?
That was
$5?
Little Caesars, but
Yeah. That's pizza.
Definitely a pizza. Yeah.
yeah, now we're all showing our age. Regular price $4, $4. Jeez, OP.
But you can come into our restaurant, our cocktail lounge that we're in. I mean, bunch of stuff in terms of getting flights, tastings, et cetera. We're open Tuesday through Sunday. Again, tours, tastings, everything.
And
Come in to see us.
We're really starting to, besides, obviously all the opportunities to come eat, rent all the spaces. We're open to anything. Barrel picks. We're really starting to try and build out our education program, have that be more active and a bigger part of West Fork, and I've taken the lead on that. So we will be rolling out a number of new class offerings and make those more of a regularity.
Good deal. I have one more little side question, and I meant to ask it earlier, and I apologize. Have they started like the Beeline, the whatever, like you get a little passport book and you can stamp it when you come around? Like Indy now finally has enough things, I feel like, between
a
you
passport.
guys.
So the only thing
To
we do
get
is
people to go and tour other stuff and like incentivize people.
Yeah, visit Indie Craft Passport, and that includes breweries, wineries, and distilleries. In
Okay.
terms of like a hardcore Indiana Distillers Trail, we don't have that. I've been fortunate.
Blake is actually the vice president of the Indiana Distillers Guild, so there's been some work there.
We're working on a few things. They're the guys at Hard Truth, the folks at Huber, Cardinal, Old
Spirits of French
55.
Lake, Old
I
Homestead,
mean,
yeah.
we're all
awesome
trying to
people.
work together to figure out because we realize that more people that visit them, the more people that visit us, the more people it's better for everybody.
Yeah.
And we've really developed some awesome relationships with all those
Absolutely.
people.
Well,
And we're working on it. We're working on it, but it doesn't exist.
Right. That's the one big thing. Like, and I want people to understand that there's great whiskey being made
Phenomenal.
north of that river.
With the grain that
Phenomenal.
we used to send down to Kentucky. right?
By the way, like all the water's the same. It's all being pulled off the same damn
Actually,
aquifers.
we have a phenomenal aquifer below that.
Yep. All the way from basically here down to Kentucky
Right.
is the same greater cave system. We used to live a couple hundred yards from one of the small openings to a cave that's technically should connect with the Mammoth Cave system,
Right.
right? In
Right.
southern Indiana.
Yep.
So it's all that old limestone that's from that ocean that used
Yeah.
to be here forever ago, right?
100%.
So they don't grow much of their grain down. They grow a little bit of their malted barley, right? But a predominance of their corn comes from Indiana. right?
100%.
So we have the water and the grain here.
Right.
And better temperature fluctuations.
I agree.
Yep.
Colder and hotter.
Yep.
Well, thank you
Or
guys
as
so
hot.
much for being on the show. We greatly appreciate it. If you want to find Bourbon Barrel Talk, you can find us on Facebook, the Instagram, or the X. You can also subscribe to wherever your favorite medium is, whether it's Spotify, iTunes, or whatever. And you can send us any questions to bourbonbarreltalk@gmail.com. This is Scott, Nick, the legend, Blake and Julian from West Fork Whsky signing off. Peace.
Thank you.
Prost.